There's something we haven't really talked about quite yet, though, and I thought we should open the show with it today. You may have heard Keystone mentioned a few times, and some of you out there may or may not be familiar with what Keystone is, but we're going to solve that for you right now. I would like to welcome my guests starting off the show today. We're doing a duo for you to kick things off. Mr. Glenn Dekhayser and David Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nick.
So, Glenn, you're at Equinix. Both of you, by the way, longtime A-Team members, I assume?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, Glenn, you and I go back a ways. You're at Equinix now. Why don't you give a little bit of background on what you're doing over at Equinix for us?
So my title is Global Principal. What I do at Equinix is advise the business globally on all matters storage. I also get to leverage my 25 years of channel experience, right? So as Equinix it takes a stronger place, let's just say, in the world of technology, a more active role in creating new ways of doing AI and data storage and basically creating hybrid multi-cloud outcomes, right? In ways that turns out only we can do. These consumption models have to evolve as well to meet the needs of what the customers are looking for. So I advise the business on that, and I get to talk to all sorts of customers and partners, and it's a great job, I'll tell you.
Yeah, fantastic. And David, how about yourself? I understand you're a customer of Glenn's, of Equinix's, based out of Australia, is that right?
From Sydney, Australia. So I work for a company called Nexon Asia Pacific, down in Sydney. And we have all of our infrastructure over in Equinix, so in multiple sites there, different states. Been using NetApp since about 7 mode.
Nice.
Yeah.
So at least before 2012.
Yeah, exactly. So quite some time. It's been great. Love the partnership there and everything like that. And we've just recently, I would say, was it end of last year, transitioned across over to Keystone, which has been great.
So if I can ask, what was the sort of driving force that before you even made the decision, what made you curious about it initially?
Yeah, so the curiosity was basically taking some time off the team and having another team, an extension of our team really on the side, and then also just going from that OPEX to CAPEX model change as well. So that was the big driver. And one of the things, being techie at heart, was that I really liked that we got all the latest hardware come in, and then at the refresh cycles, Keystone would take care of all of that. So if there was a need to change any of that hardware out due to some type of IOPS increase or demand, then they would take care of all of that. So we could kind of work alongside them, but we're not in the nitty-gritty of it.
Gotcha. So how do upgrades and refreshes work? Glenn, if you want to take this one, when somebody comes through, or let's say we launch a new system like we have this week, or new disks arrive, or a customer needs to increase capacity or something like that, with Keystone in a kind of a storage as a service mentality, how exactly do upgrades work like that?
Well, the cool thing is that you're not dealing in the same units of measure, units of administration and operation that you used to. If your life is built around the 3-year refresh cycle or 5-year refresh cycle, whatever you do, and you're constantly worrying about moving data around and thinking about the next model and working at those base constructs, the good news is that can end, because what you're getting with Keystone is service levels. How much capacity of a performance tier are you going to use? NetApp is going to make sure that you've got capacity above that to burst into when you need, and then as you grow, that moves along with you, and as you need more performance, NetApp is going to handle all of that in the back end non-disruptively. And of course, NetApp can do this with ONTAP, having the non-disruptive upgrades, which you've always, well, not always, but have had for a quite long time. You're very experienced with it, and have now automated, especially with the new stuff in Blue XP, which is taking some of the active IQ stuff and moving it in. So it's going to become a non-issue, and you're just going to consume that storage. Your applications will be happy, your users will be happy, and if that doesn't make you happy, I'm not quite sure why you're in this business.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more than what you would consider like traditional remote hands in a way, in a colo facility, for example. Like, you guys are really white glove taking care of just about everything, and customers like David can just pay their monthly bill. Is it that simple?
Well, there's a couple different ways, right? So our colo customers, right, that like David's doing, like you can have your Keystone dropped into your Equinix or your data center, even your own data center, dropped in and within the rest of your infrastructure. Great. right? And so that's one way to consume Keystone. You know, there's also new paradigms on this, by the way. So, like, we don't call this Keystone out there, but, you know, that same paradigm from NetApp is available, for instance, on, you know, the NetApp on Equinix Metal, which allows you to deploy NetApp in an as-a-service 30 metros globally, right? So, but it's the same performance tier and consumable model where you're not worrying about the, you know, the disruptions. You're not worried about any of this stuff. It's delivered as a service. And it brings a completely different mode of thinking to how you're dealing with storage, because now you can focus on the upper level outcomes and what do you need from your storage. Don't worry about how the storage is delivering it from a specific, a configuration. It just takes so much overhead off of it, and just gets you. And so when I found, I didn't even know, by the way, he was a customer until you told me.
Well, it was a happy coincidence.
So thank you, by the way. I appreciate that.
When we were putting the show together, it ended up being a happy coincidence that I wanted to find a spot for you both, and I went, wait.
Worked out well.
Right?
Yeah.
Worked out. David, I'm curious to hear from, like, the customer side perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got the service that Equinix provides, but did it satisfy everything you were sort of looking for, and Nexus was looking for when you guys were seeking out a storage as a service solution?
Yeah, I think it was. And one thing that was really interesting was when the team came in and did an evaluation of our workloads. And I think, as you mentioned, the QoS levels and everything like that, and just having a look to see, you know, do we really need platinum level storage for certain workloads? You know, we could right-size a lot of that thing. So that was quite interesting from a tech perspective. And so now we've got all of our QoS levels set and everything like that. They're very adjustable as well. So if we need to move in between those levels, it's really a flick of a switch.
How did you go about evaluating that initially, if you wouldn't mind? Because we have a fairly technical audience here. Just give us a little bit of background on how you go about evaluating which service level to choose.
Yeah, so I believe a lot of it was done by the NetApp team. I believe they used Cloud Insights.
Nice.
Yeah, and heavily on OCI.
Ooh,
nice.
Yeah, as well. So they were really able to break down the IOP level and then get right down into the detail there and be able to sort out those workloads.
And 2 thumbs up, pretty accurate. They get it right on the first run.
Yeah, really accurate. I just love that you can adjust that, like, because if a workload does die off in the future, you can just change the QoS level and away it goes. So and then that adjusts on the billing as well. So,
really nice.
The next
really
time
nice.
the collector comes in, has a look at your data, what's being used, that's adjusted.
So Glenn, do you guys have anything coming up as far as any announcements or anything, any new services, anything that, give me the pitch right now of, like, what's going on at Equinix?
Right now, you know, the NetApp on Equinix Metal is really the kind of the new paradigm of how you can get this technology deployed globally, right, without having to touch it, but getting all the benefits that David's talking about, right? Everything that's inside that NetApp is completely available. As low down as you want to get, you have access to that box to do what you need to, but you also get compute right with that, right? That's bare metal stuff, right? But almost as important is where that goes, right? And one of the things that David's company enjoys, because I think you're in Sydney, you said, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and we're located kind of at the pivot point of the hybrid multi-cloud, right? So all of the wonderful things that BlueXP can do with data motion to all the different clouds, right? Imagine having that set of data, your core set of data, right on a Keystone provided appliance. And from there, you can launch that data like military power quickly where you need it in any cloud or as a service, because Equinix is a place that, you know, that's what we specialize in, is agile interconnection to all of these places. So we give that NetApp, you know, data, we used to call it data fabric, right? I mean, we don't say it as much anymore, but, you know, that what NetApp does best, we supercharge that, because you guys at a Ferrari, we're the track. We're the one that gets you all the exit on-ramps to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So customers can take that data, go do what they want to do, get in and out, and all that value of fail fast, doing your whatever in the cloud, moving to as a service, bringing other gear to close to that data. That Keystone data in there, that's the core of the value. That's your business right there. So being able to do that, whether it's in co-location with you know, we'll call it a standard Keystone deployment,
right,
or whether you're doing it with our metal service, right? The outcome is there for customers to kind of exploit. And what I'm looking forward to is to see how customers are going to do stuff with this, because NetApp never gets you all the way to the outcome. They're giving you the keys to the car. Where you want to go, that's up to you. You got to learn how to drive. but once you know how to drive, man.
Well, we've got some pretty good GPS too that helps people get to where they want to go at this point.
Yeah, you guys do a really good job of that, doing that outcome research and development, and the stuff you were showing in the last keynote was pretty incredible.
Yeah. So, David, what are some of the things that you guys are working on that maybe storage as a service has helped you take advantage of? I always hear, just for example, that not having to have that operational overhead of maintaining stuff constantly like that and constantly refreshing frees up cycles, frees up hours and time for people to actually go build cool stuff.
Yeah.
So have you guys experienced anything like that?
Yeah, so just touching on that point, like with the upgrades are super easy to do, really easy. There is preparation beforehand, so that takes a lot of time. So now that's all offloaded onto the Keystone team, and they do a phenomenal job. They're all highly skilled. We can talk the same language, and they understand everything like that. So now that frees up a lot of time just to work on automation, scripting, things like that. And then also we have a lab, we have a FlexPod lab, which basically is the same as our production environment. So we do a lot of testing on that before going into production. So yeah, really automation.
Although I'd be remiss if we didn't add in the latest updates in BlueXP and IQ, right? Because now all the stuff that he just talked about has been automated even further to let you do all that without even thinking about it. Now, I'm still wondering how many people are going to do that in production, but like everything else, as more customers do it, more people will have faith in it, and you're going to see a lot of customers in production. All the remediation is going to be done for you automatically. I thought that was a really cool thing in one of the sessions I saw on day one.
Yeah, I'm interested to see some of the details as well around how we're going to allow people to manage Keystone and stuff like that externally from traditional storage systems or our first-party cloud storage solutions. I think those are absolutely going to be game changers for people, especially when it comes to storage as a service. We've got a lot of things to do with sovereignty, especially in the EU. I'm not sure how that really runs in Australia, but is that something you guys run into? Do you run into sovereignty issues over there?
Yeah, from time to time. I really love the classification being introduced into BlueXP, so we'll be looking at that quite heavily. And that leads me back to that lab, lab instance with BlueXP, anti-ransomware, all of these kind of things. So this is stuff that we now get time to test instead of concentrating on things that Keystone team are doing now. So it's been great. Yeah.
Nice.
Sovereignty is something that we see a lot at Equinix, right? And so in the context of NetApp, like, for instance, let's say you have a Keystone or any ONTAP in Vancouver, like in Colo, and you also have it, let's just say, in, I don't know, Montreal. And Canada, if you're a compliant organization, you need to make sure that if you're replicating between those two, that those packets don't go out of Canada. That's actually, in some cases, a legal
That's a real
requirement.
rule.
It's a real rule. So Equinix, so we've got, we think about these things. So we have this thing called Equinix Fabric. It's pretty popular. Everybody knows about it. It's kind of the thing that, people think, oh, that's the cloud on-ramp thing. Well, it's a lot more than that, because it also connects customers to themselves, right? Regionally, globally, you can create these IP WANs. You can do some pretty cool stuff with it, right? But one of the features of it in certain territories is the ability to ensure that my connection from Vancouver to Montreal never dips below the border. And and that's just an option that you can select when you're creating these connections, and it takes you 10 minutes to do the whole thing, right?
Wow.
To get Vancouver. I mean, imagine how long it used to take. Oh, I got to set up my NSP and get a T1 between Vancouver. I'm aging myself. A T1 between Vancouver and Montreal through one of the Bell Canada or one of those other guys, right? You'd be packing a few lunches and maybe going on vacation and coming back, and hopefully it'd be done. In that 10 minutes, it's done. And that's global. We can do that from Vancouver to Singapore, same time. So, but the sovereignty thing is kind of, we're seeing a lot more of that for obvious reasons that we're not all happy about.
We seem to have more regulations popping up. In recent years, obviously everybody knows about GDPR. We've had the CCPA out of California, and I think we're only going to get more of those, specifically when we start getting into some of these AI-based solutions. I think a lot of the data that it's going to be crunching, I think it's almost you're going to build sovereignty into some of that stuff as well, because you just don't want to turn AI loose and go scan everything. I mean, sometimes you might want to.
It could be an interesting thing when you have, paired with your data classification capabilities, right?
Yep.
To be able to say, okay, someone tries to create a snap mirror from this location to this location, but it's been classified as this kind of data, and something stops you from doing that because you'd be violating some code. That would be awesome to see. And there's nothing to stop somebody from doing that. The building blocks are there.
Yeah. And it would be cool to see, if you could build AI into some of that stuff where it knew about boundaries, it knew about what data it could get and couldn't get based on some of those regulations around the world.
So this is going to require something that I hope to see, and I'm personally working on, is to see data like volumes, understand where they are and where they can connect to, and how. Right? We don't do that today, but I would love to see the industry move towards something like that. So, because once data can understand where it is and what it can, where it can move, where it can be used, and I think we're going to have to get there. People are still going to be able to get themselves in trouble.
Yeah. And I think tagging, fundamental things like that could help. If you wanted to point a training instance at it or something like that, it could scan the tags to see, should I include that in my training, right? Yeah. David, back to you. Like, tell us about some of the cool projects you guys are working on that's, maybe storage as a service and Keystone have helped proliferate.
Yeah, so we run our own private cloud for customers. So we offer that. It's predominantly based on VMware. And then we also offer customers also private pods as well. So it's all based on the same FlexPod architecture with NetApp and everything like that. And so we're working on that at the moment with the Broadcom announcements and everything like this. We're navigating that space. And so that's been quite interesting. Some of it's not as bad as what we thought. And so we're just adjusting to that at the moment. And so I think like a lot of other companies and teams around, they are evaluating other hypervisors as well, just to see.
Seems to be a theme of 2024 is that we're seeing evaluation of it. We are Switzerland in that respect. We want to play with everybody, and we're nice with everybody as far as that's concerned. But at the end of the day, I think companies really have to make some tough decisions. We're going to be talking about virtualization in a little bit. Teaser for you guys out there.
Nice.
Any final thoughts, guys? Like, what should everybody know about Keystone? Like, if you had to give everybody one, if somebody's on the fence, what's the way that you would kind of push them over the edge and tell them to give it a try?
It makes the overall NetApp life simpler, and you're focusing on the right things, outcomes, your users, right, your applications, and you're getting out of having to think about the things that management hates, which is having to deal with these refreshes, physically wasting your resources on just things that you're not in that's not your business. Like, if you are an insurance company, you are not a storage company, right? So why focus your efforts on becoming great at that? You've got people that you can rely on. You've got economics you can rely on. It's not cloud, but it gives you all the best things about cloud, but giving you all, of course, the best things about having a physical infrastructure that gives you all the performance and configurability that you need.
So a bit of best of the both worlds.
Of all worlds.
Of all worlds. Wow.
Well, because we're a world, too.
Yeah. So, David, over to you. Same question. You've got a peer that's on the fence, a peer company, somebody that's a friend in the industry.
Yeah.
What would you say to them to be, reassure them that, taking the step to go into rather than buying a 3-year refresh type of cycle, maybe taking advantage of Equinix Metal and a storage as a service offering with Keystone as an alternative to what you would traditionally do?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the company, and do you want your team spending time on kind of I wouldn't say low value tasks, but I would almost low value tasks. So going next, and then putting a value onto that, as opposed to doing something to generate maybe better revenue for the company. And so there's that, and then there's just the time, the overall happiness of the team. I think when you've got like a extension of your team, which I mentioned on previously, where you can just talk to. You're talking on the same level, and you just get these guys coming in. They come on site for you. The monitoring is next level as well. It's really really good there. And so we get they alert us usually, and then we work in conjunction with them. So yeah, I think it just really comes down to, do you want your team to do these kind of low value tasks, or do you want them to do something a little bit more valuable to the company? and then just do it.
Yeah, just take the plunge.
Yeah, just take the plunge. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's out there looking at Keystone as an alternative, I think this is something that you should really look at Equinix, look at Equinix Metal with NetApp. I think it's a great solution. You get to work with great guys like Glenn, and we have some great customers, mutual customers like David. Take the plunge, take the step, do the demo, do the POC. I think you'd be surprised with how easy it actually is. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.